Well, welcome everyone to another recording of the Social Media Newsroom. We are back for more rants and raves about your favorite social networks. I say we because, of course, I am joined by the one and only Natalie M&A from 𝗏𝗏𝗃 Media. Natalie, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Pascal. It's an absolute pleasure to be with you this afternoon.
Well, thank you very much. And listen, people who have been regular viewers and listeners of the show will know that you've changed your venue slightly. So you've gone from Tyne and Wear to County So welcome to my patch.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me into the general County Durham area. I'm doing a little bit of kind of localized travel for work this week, so I am filming with permissions in my parents' house. So I've commandeered the kitchen and kicked everyone out, and yeah, it's a perfect venue for a sit down, a cup of coffee, and a chat with you, Pascal.
Yes, everyone, yeah, make sure you have a cup of coffee or your favorite drinks as we go through this audio video magazine. This is a long form kind of, get together where we share the news, we share some tech, some tactics, we look at some recent, platform changes, but also we always close with a film marketing social media special. I'm going to give you more information about this, but we're doing a summer special because we want to give you things to think about and perhaps activities to do during the summer months. We are battling, of course, as ever, internet problems, weather conditions, but also the exhaustion of watching the football match yesterday, England versus Sweden, and one of the most kind of nerve-wracking penalty sessions I've ever been there. Do you remember this one, Natalie?
Oh yes, it was a dramatic watch. But
Absolutely.
maybe it's setting us up for a significant glory this year. We'll find out.
Yeah, that'd be good. So, I mean, obviously, I'm supporting both teams, France and England. It's just double the nervousness and the excitement. But back into the social media newsroom itself. As you remember, everyone, we have 4 segments. We start with the spotlight on, and today we're going to go back to TikTok. Now, people are going to say you talk about TikTok a lot, the two of you, but we are because actually, as a platform and as a brand, they are the most generous with information and with advice. So it's not that we favor it against all the other form of vertical video and visual storytelling platforms like the Reels and the Shorts and more, but they are just giving us more information. So I'm going to ask Natalie to give us a recap on the TikTok World Conference, which is the annual conference. I don't know if it's the first one or the two, which is very much for marketers and let's say the trade, people like you, Natalie. So we're going to go back and tease out the key takeaways and advice. We also received some questions from our community, which I will ask you regarding TikTok. Then we're going to move on to our next segment, the one tech or tactic to try out. And we're going to make some recommendation for all of you. Then the news roundup itself, important, not important. I've done the research. I've got 8 news items from LinkedIn to YouTube to your threads and more. And I'm going to ask Natalie to react and let me know whether it's important and not important. And we're going to close with segment 4, film marketing, social media special. And we had to go for Back to the Future, Natalie.
Yes, absolutely, because it's a very, very special anniversary for Back to the Future this year, as it marks 40 years of just being an excellent film.
It is. It is one of the 80s classic, and what we're going to do, therefore, is reminisce about 85 and actually the marketing back in the days, and then, as we've done before, we're going to then imagine the situation. What if Back to the Future had been released only last week in 2025? What kind of social media campaign could we imagine? And in fact, it could have been the social media campaign for the 40th anniversary. But before we get to have fun with film marketing special, let's start with our first segment, Spotlight on TikTok World Conference, just after this. So, Natalie, you've chosen, should I say, the TikTok World Conference. Before I ask you to share the key takeaways and actionable advice from the conference, let me remind people where we are with TikTok, because I think that's rather important. So in the most recent news, which is about a fortnight ago, because, TikTok has made the headline for so many different reasons, one including a potential ban from operating in the US, which could actually be the precursor for a ban in other parts of the world. And about a fortnight ago, President Trump had agreed to extend the deadline, suggesting that there was a buyer for TikTok US, if you will. So that's the most recent news. And then also they've done all sort of things which they may have covered in this conference about rolling out new AI tools and content control. So as I mentioned during the intro, it's not that we favor TikTok, but they are very generous with their information. Their newsletter is great. If you have not subscribed yet to the kind of TikTok for Business newsletter, I think you should, because it is very, very good. So this conference was online. I think you had to join the academy. You had to be part of that marketing community and trade, shall we say that you are. There was, of course, the opening keynote. Then it would seem to me, judging from just the headlines, but because I'm not part of the academy, I don't have the golden ticket to be able to kind of look at those. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But there was an address regarding a title, "The Most Valuable Attention." Then there was something to do with create what moves people. We moved on then to search drives discovery, and we know that TikTok search and discoverability on TikTok is very, very powerful. And then they close, as you would expect, with an AI-powered automation to drive e-commerce. So there was a lot that they covered. Was it a morning? Was it a full-day conference?
It was an evening conference, Pascal. My least favorite type of digital conference, and a few networks do this. TikTok is not the only guilty party, but usually because they're trying to hit multiple time zones with these things, that it can end up with a 5 p.m. or a 6 p.m. kind of UK start, which is why I am always here for the latest social media news updates and ideas. It's not necessarily what I want to do at 5 p.m. after a day of kind of running client campaigns all day. So for my sins, I didn't watch this one live. I did pop it in my diary and I thought, no, I'll be catching up tomorrow morning instead. And I think what that probably means for kind of platforms like TikTok is they build these particular seminars with an appreciation that some people will want that sort of live experience so that they feel that they're watching it as it broadcasts. And that in itself is quite zeitgeisty. It's quite TikTok in its kind of overall approach. But a lot of marketers will be catching up at their convenience. So these are really well put together, scripted presentations that are delivered in really nice segmented chunks. And with the exception of the intro, which ran a little shorter, the other segments are typically between just under 11 minutes through to kind of just under 7 minutes. So end to end, it's probably about 45 minutes watch if you were to literally sit and watch it. If you're like me and you prefer to watch those kind of segment by segment because you might pause it multiple times to make a few notes or to jot down interesting ideas or to open up a tool that's referenced in a tab so that you can look through afterwards, it probably will take you double kind of the time there. But it's not a huge time commitment overall. And I think, again, just having a conference that acknowledges people have other things to do is very, very helpful. And it does mean that when we are kind of consuming content from TikTok, if it was a case of they'd done this as a whole day kind of conference, what I would probably do is write it on my to-do list. And with the best will in the world, I might be able to watch 3 1-hour segments over the course of a week and then still have the rest to catch up on. Whereas with TikTok World, I've been able to, the following morning, essentially get through all of that information so that I'm able to take those ideas and concepts right away and implement them into the work that I'm about to do that afternoon. So I think that for the speed of delivery and the cutting out the fluff and I guess the sort of nice to haves. So it is very much sort of presenter based information where the address is directly to the audience. We don't have the type of things that you might see at like a meta conference where it's a panel and a bit more of a discussion around lived experiences. This is more this is what you need to know. This is how that works. Go check it out type webinar presentation. So if you are considering it, but you're not quite sure, I would say format is excellent and thoroughly recommend it as a kind of more of a manageable view, a view that you can, if you fit it in your diary, it will add value, definitely. And you only needs a minimum time commitment.
I'm very jealous because I spent 3 days watching the Google I/O conference because it was one of the 3 days for the workshop.
Exactly.
And now, don't get me wrong, I wanted to, and so you have the opening, but even the opening keynotes is 2 hours. And then you've got the spin-off workshops. And so you literally so over 3 days and you pick and mix, what you want to do, but you do spend a lot of time. So, but I like the fact that's their thing. Now, that's their style, their format, their tone of voice. So that's really, really good. So, would you mind sharing with us then the key takeaways and actionable advice that you want to share today?
Absolutely. I found it to be really positive with a focus around kind of empowering audiences. So a lot of the kind of topics covered basically talked about how progressive and influential TikTok users are. And as a side note, as an inference, how we as marketers could capture that opportunity. So it was very platform positive in a non-sinister way, because sometimes the marketing tools that we get access to are a little bit, oh, are we ruining everyone's experience with ads? This was really more about how we can utilize TikTok opportunities to serve better ads, to support the community, to drive our businesses forward with real customer impact. The opening intro, full disclosure, was a little bit too cringy for me. So it was very much quite punny. It was quite Gen Z funny. So if you enjoy memes and references that you don't quite fully understand, the opening 2 minutes is a tough watch. But my advice would be kind of stick with it. It probably helps that younger members of my team had watched the intro before I had, and they were like, "Look, stick with it. You're gonna get value."
Yeah, and
um,
it's interesting because I've seen this done before in other conferences, and I'm in two minds about it, because in an attempt to include a particular, subsection of the audience, you may exclude the others, but also if you're not part of that generation, if you're not part of that community, it just feels a little, well, as you say, cringy and a bit forced. I mean, good luck to everyone, but I've seen this done before in other contexts as well. And I've never been a massive, anyway, adopter of this belief that each generation is so unique that, that you have to communicate very, in a very in a special way. I think, you can just use normal English, like everybody else, and just be very passionate, enthusiastic about what you do, of course.
No, absolutely. And I think just right off the bat, it's got to be accessible. You've got to use language that people understand and are able to follow. But that aside, if you can stick out the first 2 minutes, it gets better. And again, the focus is very much on the empowerment of the TikTok community. So headlines in terms of the TikTok community, writing the script, shaping culture, and giving life to trends. So actually, rather than that sort of marketing approach of what do I want to tell people about my business, actually, how can I engage with these people on a human level? So very much this sort of TikTok kind of ethos, all around how we can actually utilize TikTok driving behaviors and the opportunity that provides to businesses with creators and with brands. So TikTok essentially did a deep dive into what it referred to as the discovery loop, which was basically for anyone that hadn't seen it on screen, it's a little infinity symbol that it refers to as the discovery loop. It's not the fact that it gives you infinity scroll so you can get stuck on the platform for as long as it may capture your attention. But it essentially said that through this loop of continuous users, TikTok is actually able to capture the right attention and to change behavior. So it's able to capture that attention, change behavior through discovery and through commerce. So actually TikTok as an entire user journey, it has some nice stats to back up a lot of this along the way. And if you like a stat, there's plenty weaved in, but it's not stat overload. It's certainly not death by PowerPoint. More than 3/4 of TikTok users are likely to consider a brand after watching something on the platform. So it has really nice kind of demonstratable sound bites. If you are in a marketing position where you are perhaps pitching the relevance of TikTok, or you just want a little reminder as, okay, but potentially could that work for us? There's some nice numbers in that. Discovery as a dynamic and personal experience that happens in real time in feeds. And I think this is something that does set TikTok, or certainly short form video apart, the fact that it is a very dynamic user experience. So yes, you are passively consuming that media, but it is, by the sheer nature of the short form kind of rules, it's got to be relatable, it's got to be engaging, because if it's not, you're scrolling past it. So bad content is not going to keep your attention. It actually reminded me of the most recent Meta marketing conference, where they actually talked about shifting the focus of attention, where we look at every second that a user looks at a brand is now a second of attention earned. So are you going to get second 2? Are you going to get second 3? Is that first second strong enough to get people to the next second? So there was nice to see the echoes in that, because I feel like once you hear something that is being talked about by one platform and you hear it being talked about by another platform, there's definitely more to it in terms of overall general user trends. And then the third element around the commerce facility, that was much more around the sort of more unique to TikTok tools. So essentially 60% of TikTok shoppers have made a purchase after seeing content or ads on the platform. And really the focus here was on how TikTok has built its business tools alongside building its user base. And other networks, just from historical kind of how social networks rose, and they were very much about the kind of peer and community, and then businesses wanted to join them and brands wanted to get on board. They have the benefit of essentially being of its generation. So TikTok, a product of a world where brands and individual users already want to exist on socials. So this is essentially given a little bit more insight into how they've actually progressed their brand and advertising options alongside their user experience options. And there's loads of great features. So if you are not that active on TikTok, or it's not currently in your kind of social media network repertoire, there are lots of very, very cool features that TikTok will allow you to use for businesses. The nice thing about this is, while you will need a TikTok account to get in and use them, you don't actually need to apply what you learn here on TikTok directly. So you can use TikTok to create scripts that you then use on other social networks. And what it's done is it's built a really comprehensive suite of tools that are all focused on driving user behavior and rewarding brands. It refers to it as a comprehensive ecosystem of tools. To give you a couple of ideas of how these kind of work, you've got 𝗏𝗵𝗲, that is their big AI system. And they have surged a lot of effort into that, and I would say it is a great system to use. I've spoken about it briefly in kind of different segments. You can essentially use it as an AI assistant, but to write scripts, to generate captions, to help with ideas, to show you what's working, particularly in the TikTok space. These are all learnings that you can use to apply to other networks that are also short form video focused. There's also TikTok One, where you can search ads. TikTok Shop, you've got your GMV Max and your Smart Plus. Now, the latter all around designing and improving your e-commerce, particularly the Smart Plus, which gives you some really helpful deep insights into how to optimize your ads. And the nice thing is you can obviously translate those findings onto other networks. But with the rise of TikTok, we're actually seeing much more diversity in the audiences that are active on there. We've just gone live with a client who had not had TikTok as part of their social channels, but they really thought this year for a specific event, it would deliver quite significant value. But they were quite, I guess, not apprehensive, but very much keen to try it and see the results that they actually got. But what we've been able to find is that although their demographics are typically a little bit older, we're finding that 40% of their audience right off the bat are over the age of 55. And that's actually their ideal demographic. So percentage-wise, the 40% of their audience on TikTok is over the age of 55. 40% of their sales correlate with that. So actually they're able to go on there, and because that mass user base exists, actually just directly reach those ideal customers. So it's really, really nice to see. And I would say if anyone is kind of considering whether TikTok is a good fit, now is definitely the time to give it a try. There's no harm in kind of jumping in, giving it a go. Utilize all of the tools. So don't think I'll just start posting and then I'll look at the tools. The tools are there because it's going to tell you what's working. It's going to hold your hand. It's going to help you create. So use it right off the bat. The second section of featuring most valuable attention was probably my favorite section. And I thought it was the most interesting, but maybe that's just kind of skewed on kind of what I think is a good fact. So it was all about capturing the right attention at the right time in order to drive results. And I think from a marketing perspective, this is music to everyone's ears. 54% of TikTok users say that they focus purely on content while on the platform. I was very dubious about this stat, Pascal, because I don't know how pure your attention is when you're in life and you've got like a big screen also kind of blaring and you've got a partner asking you whether you've taken the bins out and you know, life just gets in the way. But I thought it was interesting that they at least think that they are giving TikTok their kind of full attention, because it's very much around that idea of, again, capturing and earning that attention second by second. They didn't have a stat to back this up, but a key talking point was from research, they believe that TikTok gives a measurable share of mind on par with TV and better than any other mobile first platform. So they actually, I thought you might like this, what talked about the big screen impact that you can have on a small screen with your TikTok activity. And I think if we were to look at brands that are doing it well and brands that are physically storytelling and pulling that audience in, maybe it is that same level of kind of big screen impact, but on that small screen. What do you think?
Yeah, I've seen so many examples of that. I mean, you even have TikTok adverts at the cinema, you know, talking about the big screen, and then that. So, I think people are starting to now see that you can take people on an interesting kind of hunt for information, knowing that this is the life that we live now. I mean, you know, you can discuss whether or not it's good that we should have mobile phones and the TV and the radio on at the same time. But ultimately, if you accept that that's where people are currently living, then use it to your advantage. And that's why, for example, now on TV adverts, you'll see a QR code, or you'll see a hashtag, or you'll see literally calls to action to then move on to social media, as opposed to necessarily go onto the website. So that's fascinating. And just reflecting on what you said, particularly about the age, and this is something you and I've covered many a time, you know, about making assumptions. I know that some of the brands themselves may want to suggest, you know, that they have claimed a particular demographic and that kind of things. But I think because of mobile phones in particular, it's just, you know, and do you remember many years ago when you and I used to run workshops, and we show that stat of the age groups across Facebook, and we would ask people, well, who do you think is using Facebook? And invariably people say, well, young people. And then we had the charts from Facebook themselves, now called Meta, and you would see there was barely a difference across the different age group all the way to 50, 60. Now, there was a big drop around 70 and 60 10 years ago. I don't think that would be the case now. So I think for me, that it plays to, I suppose, our little criticism about the way in which they launched TikTok World, because it is not solely the domain of Gen Z and everyone else that is going to come after them. It's for everyone. And everyone's going to find their own way of storytelling. They're going to find their own language and tone of voice. They don't have, as you mentioned many a time, jump on every single trend going, if that's not part of the audience you want to target. But I think it's a massive wake-up call for you to share this idea that, you know, people 50 plus are on TikTok. You know, it's not just teenagers or the group between being a teenager and an adult. I never know what it's called. Marketers always find clever ways to call that. So I think that's really important. And I think it's very, very clever on their part, bear in mind that they are obviously concerned about their future in the US and beyond. This idea of, well, here's the toolkit, the symphony that you introduced at the AI conference in Durham quite a while back now. So that was your little kind of insider knowledge. The fact that you can be a user of the tools will necessarily publishing online, which means that they're going to create a nice community of users who are going to be part of their champions, I'm guessing, to make sure that TikTok stays alive.
No, definitely. And I think it's by investing that development time and making those kind of systems available to people that they really build value for marketers. I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I've got another kind of scoop. One of my big kind of key takeaways was that we actually got an unveiling of TikTok Market Scope. So this is billed as a first of its kind data insight solution, and it's only on TikTok. So they're talking about the massive data that they've actually been able to utilize in terms of identifying, understanding, and activating audiences at every single stage of the sales funnel. So this is rather than if you were creating an ad and you actually wanted to say, I want people who are going to be in the market for my product or service in the coming months, you can actually target them pre-funnel. Now, this traditionally has been the, I guess, unique area of Pinterest. Pinterest is very much existed in there. We know your customers before they know that they're going to be your customers. This is the home of kind of building trends. Really interesting to see TikTok muscling onto this and say we're the only platform that's doing this, and they're probably the only platform that's doing it in quite this way. But essentially, what they're talking about is a full funnel solution. So actually, for marketers, being able to run ads for those that are at that interest level. So they're already active in the market. You just need to get the right message in front of them at the right time. But actually using social to feed your funnel in a much more data-driven way than traditionally a marketer might do slightly more generalized brand marketing for kind of brand recall and uplift for those that are not going to be kind of immediate kind of customers or to kind of grow in new sectors. Really interesting to see that. I'm quite excited to play with that, essentially to give an added dimension to ads in terms of the data that we're able to utilize when we talk about the decision-making journey for audiences. One of the key ways that they've been able to do this is the fact that 170 million of us open TikTok every day. And essentially that means that they've got a ton of data, which has always been a key strength of Meta because it's had the mass user base. But actually with this, we're seeing TikTok actually reposition its data offering in a way that can kind of add real unique value all around driving a return on investment for businesses that run ads and create content that works on the platform. It ended on a very nice kind of key call to action around the more you put in, the more you get out, which I'm sure is true or as equal in their eyes in terms of marketing budget versus video creation. But very much around this is TikTok, this is your opportunity, this is everything that you can do on it right now, and all the cool tools and features that we have built and created, and go do great things. So end to end, cannot recommend it enough as a watch.
Nice, nice. Thank you very much. I was just reflecting. It feels as though, if you think about the other form or the other platform where you can access vertical videos, kind of, I think YouTube, by extension, Google, by extension, Alphabet, I think they've messed up. They should have by now have created the toolkits and the devices where you could actually do so much more on YouTube itself, YouTube Studio, to create YouTube Shorts, because the way in which you can do YouTube Shorts, it's just not very good at all. It just doesn't work, and it's particularly off-putting. And I think with YouTube, the problem that they've got now is that because I think they've not given people the toolkit the way TikTok have, you end up primarily with essentially plagiarism. So people are actually doing shorts of existing content, and therefore we are right into IP theft. Let's be frank about it. Or you've got AI, faceless videos. So actually, the YouTube short experience it's not great. I don't think it's particularly good, and also I don't think that the algorithm is working because I never get to see what I want to see really. And by now, back to your point about data, Natalie, Google knows exactly what I want to see, which is pretty much about films. But that's by the by. Then you've got obviously Meta itself, and it's okay. I think it's better. So Um, Bear in mind that YouTube is the number one in some circles, search engine still to this day. I think they've messed up, that's kind of fascinating. And listen, a few days ago, you may have noticed I put a post on LinkedIn asking people for questions relating to the spotlight. Actually, it was one that the best performing LinkedIn post. I'll do that again. I just ask questions and that kind of things. But we got two questions. One international question. I'll start with this one, and one very local question. So Mustafa Ali from Agent Grow, based in San Diego, California. I always think you have to say San Diego, California. I have to add the California at the end. So it's a platform that can help you grow your LinkedIn, kind of funnel pipeline using AI. And his question from Mustafa is as follows: what is, in your view, Natalie, the biggest misconception people have about using TikTok for marketing?
Oh, I think the biggest misconception is that it might not be the right fit for them without trying. That's not to say that you're guaranteed a level of TikTok success, but I think a lot of businesses will kind of write it off without actually putting together a bit of a strategic plan and kind of reviewing a 3 month course of kind of content using all the tools and data that kind of are available. I think that's probably your kind of your biggest one. And I think probably a bit of kind of peer pressure around the content that you create on there. I think just if you are wanting to explore TikTok by the very nature of what makes a video successful on TikTok is usually it looks and feels quite TikTok. And certainly one of the things that they definitely pioneered at TikTok World was creating TikTok first content. So making sure that actually you're giving your audiences exactly what they want to see. A 3 minute technical video might do really well on a LinkedIn page where audiences are looking for a different type of content. And that's not going to fly with a kind of TikTok audience. So I think just allowing yourself to create a bit of a rule book around what is going to be something that you are still happy to have your brand name out with, that is professional, that adds value to your audiences that watch it, but actually does enable you to use some of those TikTok features. And it can be as simple as adding music, creating a slideshow, making sure you've got some nice subtitles and captions on there. I think it's a lot of businesses will just either write it off entirely and not give it a go, or they will try it, create content that they secretly hate themselves, and feel bad about posting it, and then just generally not quite get that right audience and kind of engagement on there. The mass user base is so significant. And everyone's on there because they are looking to give the platform their attention. They want to find short form videos to watch. So if you can get the right content in front of the right audience, it can be a network that kind of really delivers whoever you're trying to reach. The audience is diverse. It definitely is. So I think hopefully that answers the question a little, and gives a bit of kind of added context there.
Come up with something actually listening to you. This is a new thought process, so bear with me. If you think about what we're trying to do here from a marketing standpoint, we as businesses are almost guest contributors to the platform. You can pay as well. So it's like, being part of a magazine. If it's free, it's PR. If you pay, it's advertising. And in a way, all magazines, all kind of news platforms, anything where you want to be a guest contributor, even an event, they have what I'm going to call editorial guidelines. And maybe therefore the way for people to think about it is that for all it's online, it is, think of it as an online magazine where they have guidelines for the contributors. They have a tone of voice, they have a style, and you have to adapt, or your contribution will be rejected by the editors. So yeah, sorry, it's just a completely new thought there to kind of help people understand this. Second question, more local, from the one and only Simon Raybould. So Simon Raybould, as you can see, Natalie's smiling. We know him very, very well. Specialist trainer in voice and presentation skills and the creator of story making. And this is his question for you. What is the thing you've seen online that's made you spit your drink out? And I can't tell whether it means because you laughed so much or you were horrified.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which one do you want? The horrified one or the laughter one?
Laughter one. Let's keep it.
Oh, keep it positive. I wanted to do the main answer. In terms of content that has been really funny, I think the content that I find funniest online is the content that's really, really relatable. So I want to see something that I can look at and think, that is me. Or even better, I can send it to my best mate and be like, that is you on there.
Right.
So I quite like a bit of kind of self-depreciation kind of humor on there. But that's probably my take on kind of best content.
I like that. I get lots from my wife about, sometimes they do like little sketches, and it's usually about someone whinging about the quality of the food in the restaurant, and so that's you that. Um, but the one that I shared with Simon on the LinkedIn was I saw one that was actually very funny, but it wasn't funny, where a guy was driving and must have used like one of those dash cams, and actually quite a sizable spider just appeared on his windscreen, and he freaked out so much he crashed his car. So
My goodness. New fear unlocked. Thank you.
So anyway, thank you to Mustafa and Simon. But everyone, that's the way we like to do things on the Spotlight. We will deep dive on a particular platform or particular strategy, but we want to add your own comments as well. So, and Mustafa, I will share this with a timestamp as well. But time to slow things down and move on to our next segment, which is the one tactic or technique to try out. And this segment of the show, Natalie and I like to surprise each other with either a social media tech or a social media tactic that you should try out over the coming days and weeks. So, Natalie, have you gone for tech or tactic?
I have gone for a tech this
Oh,
week,
all right.
and I'm
Okay.
excited to share it. So this is something that we've been having lots of fun with at the 𝗂𝗃𝗃 office, and for me, outside of the 𝗂𝗃𝗃 office as well. So my tech choice is Apple's new Genmoji feature, which allows you to create your own emoji with just a couple of prompts.
Wow.
And yeah, I feel like the way in which we communicate has become so much more around kind of quick time messaging, but also emojis have become a huge part of our kind of informal communication. And we can use them to signify quite a lot. But how many times have you been like, oh, there isn't even an emoji for this? But now you can generate your own. So we've been having a lot of fun with it at the office. It was World Emoji Day yesterday. Happy belated
Right.
World Emoji Day, Pascal. So I hope you celebrated. So we created a little bit of content. And again, this is for our 𝗂𝗃𝗃 TikTok around the emojis that don't exist, but we think as digital marketers should. So it was great fun kind of bouncing ideas in the office. We came up with some excellent emojis, if I do say so myself. Ring light emoji, 3 office phones emoji to signify that you've got the entire suite of office phones at any given moment. 𝗵𝗄𝗃 emoji for Luna, our little official mascot. Sticky notepad emoji. These all essentials. But I would definitely recommend have a little play around with it. It's great in terms of fun comms on a peer-to-peer level. But also I feel like if you wanted to create some emojis that were very bespoke to your brand, you can use these in your kind of WhatsApp messaging with clients, and kind of have a little bit more of a kind of unique, fun, on brand take. I'm excited to see this become an increasing part of kind of culture, being able to generate your own. And I just think as an AI tool, it's a really neat one.
Nice. Very nice. I'm so excited. But take me out of my misery. Is it for the iPhone, or is it an online, can you go online on the website and...
Only for iPhone, and it's only newer iPhones at the moment. So I'm hoping it's going to roll out and become a thing. You can save them if you have them on iPhone. You can save them as stickers, so you can essentially reply with a big emoji sticker. Which my husband has been thrilled about, getting loads of generated emojis and stickers.
I love it. I mean, so I use emojis, to punctuate what we do. It can be formal, could be on LinkedIn post and beyond. So my go-to are usually YayText and Emoji Wiki, but they are existing. Emoji Wiki is great because you don't realize how many there are already, but to be able to do your own, it's just absolutely amazing. So I have to be very, very patient because I am an Android phone user. And hopefully there'd be a web-based version.
It will come.
I mean,
absolutely, it will come.
that is such a good PR stunt. So listen, I was torn, but I went for a tactic, for our summer special. And it was all to do with conversation I've been having, which I know you're having as well with your clients about using AI for social media, AI assistant to help you with the planning or the creation of social media posts and so on. And I'm becoming a bit more robust now, Natalie, perhaps because I'm getting older, or maybe because it's getting hot out there with this idea of, I think if we imagine that it's been now over 2.5 years since the launch of ChatGPT, perhaps we should get a bit more serious about using AI. So have lots of fun with the Jenny emoji. But when it comes to using AI, and I suppose for me, the risk is always, well, can you make sure that you use AI in a manner that is so very different to your competitors that you don't end up with the same suggestions? Because ultimately, AI, with respect, is not that good. It's not that creative. It's very impressive. It's very fast. Can access billions of data sets, within milliseconds. But ultimately, the output is largely influenced by your input, so what did you ask and how did you ask it? And I want people to imagine you have a meeting with Natalie and myself and you want to talk about your social media campaign. And I can assure you that the first thing we'll say, or the second thing we'll say to you after hello, is who are customers? For people like Natalie and I, we can't help you to the degree that we want to help you if we don't understand who you wish to engage with. And therefore, as a result of which, I am now insisting that my clients have a conversation. So it's not just like a one-off transaction. Hey, ChatGPT, hey, Meta AI and all the others, please do this for me. You want to have almost like an appointment and have an exchange with your assistant, which I'm going to call a consultant now. And the number one activity that you want to be doing is to use AI to create a very comprehensive customer profile or customer avatar. Now, historically, my customers have hated doing customer profiles and avatars because actually it's hard. It's very, very hard, to think. So I've put in the show notes, everybody, the beginning of the conversation should be having way before you ask for social media contributions. So here it goes. I need your help to write a detailed customer profile or persona. Acting as my expert marketing and sales consultant, can you please remind me how to structure a customer profile or persona for B2B, B2C? You choose, the endpoint, Natalie. The results that I've had, and then you share more information about your customers, but what you end up with is almost like a fact sheet per customer type, per customer group that you can save as a PDF. Those profiles are outstanding, Natalie. I mean, for once, I would say AI is better than us. And then if you imagine that then you attached this onto ChatGPT, onto Gemini, onto Perplexity and all the others, and say, have a look at the profile first, and now let's work together on my social media campaign. The result would be so very different to the competition to begin with. It's so much more relevant. I am just so excited for everybody else. But my kind of tactic is this idea of, right, let's mature the way we use AI. Let's pretend that's very helpful to use imagination that you're having a meeting with Natalie or Pascal, and you've got to explain who your customers are. And then we're going to give you a lot better ideas, advice, and suggestions, and so will AI. So there you go, using AI to build the most comprehensive avatar. What do you think?
I think it sounds great, and I think it is something that I'd say that feels like the type of thing where it's a marketing to do, and it's the type of to do that you put off for ages because it's really tricky. But I think it would help speed that up, and it would help remove any of our prejudices as well that we would have around, if we're looking directly at who our potential customers could and should be, we've obviously got all of that kind of baggage of, oh, well, we previously sold to X, Y, and Z. So our customer profiles and personas are a little bit skewed by our kind of lived experience. And there might be a great sector that's huge opportunity for us, but because we've had one less than ideal client there, we don't even kind of factor that in. So I think it's a great way to get some excellent quality resource, but also take yourself out of it a little bit in a way that actually gives you some fresh ideas and fresh perspective. Sounds amazing.
I mean, honestly, I'm not saying it because I've invented a thing, I'm literally saying when I saw what I got back, I was thinking even I could not do that. And because it's about time, it's about, interest. It's about, but like you said, also, we can only kind of think about our lived in experience, whereas ChatGPT and all the others will seek out information from the internet. And some of the segment would give you suggestions for social media, for strap lines, for pain points. It's absolutely amazing. You should all do it. All right. Well, listen, let's move on to our next segment. I always look forward to this one, a kind of news roundup in the important, not important, just after this. Okay, so in this segment, I've done the research. I'm going to present to you, Natalie, some news and announcements from our social media platforms. And I'm going to ask you, is it important or not important news? And if it's important, I may go back to it and ask you to delve a bit more about why you think that's the case. We'll start with news number one from LinkedIn. Users may now see the option to upload a video as a cover for their article or newsletter. Important or not important?
It's nice. I like it as an option, but I don't think it's important.
Although you say it's nice, I mean that you had to just say that. We get it, yeah. It's nice. There are more important things LinkedIn to sort out, such as, for example, news number two: LinkedIn's algorithm has shifted yet again. Meaningful engagement, such as comments or saves, is being rewarded now, and evergreen posts now keep popping up weeks after posting.
Oh, I think this is important because it's changing the way that we all use LinkedIn. So important.
Okay, number three, Facebook is now advising users to put external links in the comments section, not inside a post, to boost reach and reduce distractions.
Important. And also important, I need to know, Facebook, is it to reduce reach? Is it to boost reach or is it to reduce distractions? These are two very different elements.
Yeah, which has number four. There's also a strong focus on YouTube for responsible use of AI in video content, including clearer guidelines and disclosure.
Um, I think important for the good of the world, but I don't think it's necessarily going to reduce huge issues.
Number five, Pinterest users can now swipe up on the pin to view blog posts and product pages without leaving the Pinterest app. If you're seeing a boost in direct traffic in your analytics, this could be why.
Again, cool feature, not that important.
And now there's been no noticeable news from Blue Sky, but Thread now has its own platform chief for the first time, and the platform has started testing direct messages, and link posts are also performing better, a win for news sharers.
Yeah, good news. I don't think it's that important. We're still seeing very low active users on Threads, but hopefully this will get better.
Yes, Instagram is rolling out new restrictions for teens' accounts, limiting interactions and increasing privacy protections as part of a wider summer safety push across Meta.
I'm going to say important because I think anything around online safety is always important. While this probably doesn't necessarily go far enough, it's still great to see.
And finally, WhatsApp has updated its business messaging rules. Sessions initiated by Facebook pages or click to WhatsApp ads last for 72 hours instead of 24.
I mean, again, it's nice to have. It's rare that at 24 hours that's going to have timed out anyway, so not that important.
All right, thank you very much. So let's go back then to this LinkedIn algorithm shifting again. I mean, you can just sense the frustration for all those LinkedIn users who are trying to find a way for their community to at least see their post. And, you know, it's all about wet and ugly. But now this idea of it's about comments or saves and also evergreen posts. So how will LinkedIn know? We can discuss that keep popping up weeks after posting. I've seen this, you know, I've had some content where I get a like and a comment. I barely remember what I did all those weeks ago. So what do you make of all this?
No, I think for me as well, Pascal, I've definitely sensed like a palpable shift in terms of posts that are now weeks old are just like attracting like a few more likes, and clearly that's because people are seeing them in timelines for the first time. Now, my personal posts that are a couple of weeks old were all related to an event that I was going to. So if these people are that interested in, I'd rather they knew previously. I think with LinkedIn, the issue that we've got is if you and I were talking kind of a number of years ago, we would be talking about the visibility that you would get over multiple days for one post on LinkedIn. Over the years, that then very much kind of shifted down. So rather than, a few days of visibility. You might get like a day and a half of visibility, and then that post kind of pretty much out of timelines. However, if it's now a case of LinkedIn has got its audiences used to this more real-time posting, the types of things that we are posting about, slightly more real-time in their nature, because it's very much, we've all been encouraged to post things that are super timely because we're only going to get this small window of visibility on most content. Instead, it's now shifted those goalposts. So actually, it means that a lot of what I'm personally seeing in feed is super relevant to that person that posted it 3 weeks ago when it was like interesting or relevant, or worse, it was them saying, hey, I've got this event on and you can come, and I see it 3 weeks later. I think I would have loved to go to that. That would have been a really interesting screening, or that would have been a really interesting kind of opportunity to meet with that person. And the kind of the window's closed. So I'm actually not getting much gratification from those older posts that I'm kind of currently seeing. From a content creation perspective, it's really exciting because it means that if you're putting in a bit more effort for content, you're probably going to get a longer kind of visibility window for it. So I think it's whether they stick with it that's going to be the real kicker here. So whether it goes back because we're all already sick of seeing weeks old content in feed, or whether they just force us to get used to that more evergreen content where actually it might result in a behavior shift from users. So rather than me posting saying, hey, we're presenting at Time Design Week, I might flip that, not bother with that because that's not going to get enough kind of visibility in a timely way that people enjoy seeing it, and say, hey, we had a great time presenting at Time Design Week. Here's what we learned. So actually, I might, if we can embrace it and flip it and they stick with it, it might mean that we can get something that works in a really interesting way and actually delivers more visibility for content overall. If they change it back just as we're starting to kind of shift our behavior, I don't think it's going to do them any kind of favors. But right now, I'm only hearing moans about this particular change. And I'm mourning, I'm contributing.
Do you know, I mean, certainly the evidence that comments are helping reach, I've seen it now. If I've got comments, not a lot actually, I can see the numbers of views is vastly greater than posts where there's been just maybe the kind of the likes and the applause and so on. I mean, one thing that's been almost a stuff of legend and myths with LinkedIn is that if you put a link within the post, you don't get as much of a reach. So people have started quite some time ago to put the links into the comments. So now Facebook's saying, yep, do that, please. And that's going to help because people will not feel as distracted, and this will help boost your reach. This is the first in 2025 that a platform will actually ask us specifically to put links into the comments.
Yes. So I guess the historic LinkedIn behavior is just because, data tells us that if we put the kind of link in the comments, we know we get the better reach. At no point, to my knowledge, has LinkedIn ever said that exactly as you kind of say, Pascal. It's basically people figuring it out and kind of creating their own kind of best practice. Meta, this makes me think that there's more to this. So the fact that they're talking about reducing or increasing reach makes me think there is algorithm consequences if you continue to post the link in the core body of the post. But again, it'll come back to weighing up do you need the reach or do you want people to take action? Because actually, if you are posting a link in a post, that is only a distraction to Facebook itself. So if you are the business and you say, hey, check out our new blog, it's filled with information about X, Y, and Z, click here to read, and you get that audience member to click through, they're not distracted. They are distracted from Facebook by your content. So these are kind of, is this for my business benefit or is this for Facebook's benefit in terms of getting to keep audiences on there? You know what? I think it sounds like they need a Pinterest style system where you can flip up and actually read the article piece without leaving the network itself.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And listen, who'd have thought that Pinterest could be actually the one that shows the way? Because, I think people do want to use social media as the curation platform for the news that they're interested in, and we're not talking about ex-Twitter, but they're still trying to be the go-to for the latest news and that kind of thing. Threads trying to do the same thing and so on. So it's not just about, I know that that's the what the platform favor, that people stay within the platform, but I think we're all kind of capable enough to leave the platform through the narrative to then come back to it, and by just doing a back or swipe right, left, up and down, So I think it feels like ancient stuff that the platform needs to get rid of. It's a bit like having to use different plugs for different phones, and we need to have a diktat from the EU to say, right, enough is enough. Social media platform, you would allow links and you would allow people to access the information on the internet via you, because you are essentially operating as a curator and as a filter. Excellent. Always a pleasure to look back at the latest news, everyone. If we've missed some news, I've only chosen the top 8. There was more than that. Please let us know in the comments and send us also your own news, which will feature in a future episode. But for now, we're going to move on to our final segment, Film Marketing Social Media Special, just after this. Okay, so for this segment, Film Marketing Social Media Special, we've chosen Back to the Future. We had to. This is the 40th anniversary celebration. This was released in the US about 10 days ago at the time of recording this episode. Let's go back to 1985, literally, Natalie, and let's watch the trailer.
Steven Spielberg presents Back to the Future, a Robert Zemeckis film. Marty leads an ordinary life.
No McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley.
Yeah, well, history is going to change.
And 1985 is not his year. But Dr. Brown is about to change all that.
Are you telling me that you built a time machine out of a DeLorean?
He's sending Marty 30 years back in time.
It works! It's a flying saucer from outer space!
Now, he's trapped in the past.
It's gotta be a dream.
About to meet
Chocolate.
his future father.
He's a peeping Tom.
Wow!
And he's making an impression on his mother.
He's an absolute dream. And he can sleep in my room.
Anything you do could have serious repercussions on future events.
Now, he's got to make his mother and father fall in love.
For crying out loud, I haven't even been born yet.
And only Dr. Brown can help him get back to the future.
Are you telling me that this sucker is nuclear?
Precisely.
Michael J. Fox,
Whoa, this is heavy.
Christopher Lloyd,
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
Back to the Future.
Yes. Oh, this is how they used to make the trailers. They should come back. They should have the voice again.
Absolutely. I think it's a different pace and a different approach to trailers, definitely.
Yeah. In fact, when they do anniversaries, which they are with the 40th anniversary of Back to the Future, this year there's so many anniversaries, including Jaws and a few other things. I don't know. It's pure nostalgia. I just don't like the modern trailers. It's a bit too slick, a bit too, perfect. And so I just prefer to be taken back to 1985. And on that very point, so what is interesting, this has to be one of the top movies from the 80s, in terms of, it's a joyous experience to watch Back to the Future. I think they got it superbly right. The characters, the story itself, the mix between 1985 and 1955, which are just two very, very interesting era. And in fact, even recently, Roger actually pointed out to me during one of our recordings, but even if they were to make Back to the Future today, they would have to go back to that era, because 1955 there was very, very low tech, and 1985 was just the start of tech. If you did a movie, for example, taking place in 2025, and you went back to 1995, it just wouldn't work. The era that's just not working. So this was a summer blockbuster in the US, but interestingly in the UK, I did this research, we had to wait till December of 1985, which is just the way things were at the time in terms of distribution. So that became more of a Christmas movie, which had also, so it was a very long drawn out affair in terms of releasing it back in 1985. Not like today, where it's a worldwide release the death of the premiere, typically. Now, currently, Back to the Future is still a very, very famous trilogy and franchise. There's a show in London. There's an official website. They're using X, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram to promote themselves on a YouTube channel. But 1985, different era altogether. Well, to begin with, very, very quickly, this is well known amongst the fan. Very tough movie to sell and get made. So Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale were the writers. I think now people say it was rejected about 44 times by different studios. It wasn't until Steven Spielberg and a few others got involved to really get through the resistance from the studios that they got it made. But even once it was made, Natalie, the distributors, Universal, really struggled to find a hook, and they were still wedded to the way they used to do things in the 70s and the 80s. So they would say, well, what is it? Is it a comedy? Is it sci-fi? Is it, that kind of things? And they really struggled. And in a way, what that meant was that the filmmakers themselves had to assume that they had to do their own marketing or supplement the generic marketing. I'll give an example of how they got it wrong. So Universal Studios put some adverts in the newspapers. And they thought, well, it's a comedy. Maybe it's like the other comedies we've been promoting, like Revenge of the Nerds, that kind of really. So this was a strapline in the advert, the printed advert. Are you telling me my mother's got the hots for me? So that's the advert at the time from Universal Studios to promote Back to the Future. And so that confusion, that tension between the filmmakers, distributors meant that, Rob Zemeckis, Bob Gale, and many others used other form of marketing PR in some time, kind of other guerrilla film marketing techniques to really make sure that the fans got it. Steven Spielberg actually went ahead and did a bit of a teaser where the car was put forward a bit, and then they had the trailer. So in a way, I wanted to imagine that it's the same, that today the distributors still don't understand. We still need to imagine we're going to do that on marketing using our own resources. And in 2025, we have social media. And we're going to be looking at tapping into the assets, because ultimately it's about the story, it's about the characters, it's about the car, of course, it's about the songs from Huey Lewis and the News, it's about the many one-liners that we all know by heart, it's about the dog, of course, and so on and so forth. So have you got some suggestions? Let's imagine that we're sitting down and we have some really grumpy people from Universal Studios listening to us, and they're listening to your social media ideas. Natalie, over to you.
Well, I think that the previous take of the true meaning of the film, which was not "Are you telling me my mother?" I think if we were to strip it back, and the kind of the true meaning, or kind of my takeaway, is essentially it's a great story, and it's a great story that reaffirms that we are all essentially in charge of our own destiny. And I think a really nice and almost a bit of a retro nod here would be to have a almost choose your own adventure style kind of experience for audiences. Now, my immediate idea was that you could display this on an Instagram grid. So you could have all elements of kind of imagery, little video clips. It could relate to the film itself, but almost be kind of a little bit of additional typical like a DVD bonus type storyline, or kind of interviews and those elements. And essentially within that grid, have everything numbered, so your audiences can then pick number 2 or number 8, and they can navigate, play around the grid. They see some images, they read a little, they watch a clip or two, and essentially it's a really positive ultimate call to action is that you need to go and book tickets and see this movie. But I think that would be a great way to actually immerse audiences in the more accurate meaning of the film, but also the lore behind it, and make sure they feel like part of that kind of narrative. If chatting about film marketing with you for the previous months and years has taught me absolutely anything, it's that actually the films that do it best in a social media enabled world are the ones that really invite those fans in. And I think that would be a really lovely way to invite them in, alongside obvious ways such as filters. You could do a nice 88 miles an hour and see where that's going to take you, either as like a nice quiz filter where it just sort of something appears above your head, or you can kind of upload your own background. I think there's loads of fun to be had either on choosing your own adventure or creating your own content.
could do something where literally you're inside your own car, like a normal car, not the DeLorean, clearly, although they do exist. And with a filter, you could have the backdrop with the flux capacitor, and you could have the date in front of you. So you could have a little montage. Do you remember what you could do when we reviewed A Quiet Place Day One, where you could actually invent your own little mini movies about what's happening in Durham, whatever. So all those filters, I like them at all. But I'm going to join you with a retro thing. So I remember 1985, I was around. I went to this movie at the cinema back in France, in Bordeaux. And I think you would, if you were to promote this today, you still have the storyline of 1955, 85. You have to stick to that to really make it super engaging. And you've got double nostalgia. So I think in the 80s, what was a big thing was trading cards, collecting the cards of all movies. And there was a fight in the playground about, who had the special one and so on. I remember pleading my mother to buy me the packs because there was a chewing gum as well in it. But you would quickly go through, I've got them already. And it was all of it. But so kind of 80s style trading cards for all the different characters, including maybe the different venues in Hill Valley. And the car itself could be the big silvery one that you want to get and so on. But I think even in 2025, you should definitely offer people to go online and play an 80s retro game, like proper 80s one with the kind of 8-bit music and that kind of things. And you could be like Marty McFly, for example, either riding your skateboard or driving a DeLorean, earning points by avoiding obstacles. A very old-fashioned style of 80s video games, all the way to, essentially gathering all the different parts of the flux capacitor in X number of time, and you can share your score online. But I think people would just go behind it big time, and that would create a lot of sharing and so on. So yeah, absolutely, we should play on the retro. So let's move on to more modern times, I guess. So what about maybe AI, using AI and all the form of communication? Have you got any suggestions, Natalie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you could use AI. Well, there's a number of ways you could use AI. My mind's racing with AI possibilities. But with you saying it would be a normal car, of course, not a DeLorean, I'm gonna geek out and ask you whether you know this particular fact. But when I was researching for this recording, I found out, and I loved this, that Ford offered $75,000 for them to feature a Mustang in place of a DeLorean. And the official line back was, don't worry, I'm not going to get you demonetized on YouTube here. It was, Doc Brown doesn't drive a blank Mustang. So essentially, I really like the idea that the DeLorean is such an aspirational kind of vehicle for this. I think what you could do is you could have a lovely AI filter where essentially you basically can upload any picture that has any car in it, and it automatically swaps the car out for DeLorean. So you could have a parking lot full of DeLoreans, and you can create that kind of content. I would love a more DeLorean heavy world. I think it'd be great. I think you could prank. I think you could send this content, or just fake your own new car upgrade with the DeLorean on the driveway. If you wanted something that was a little bit more kind of competition based around that, I think you could use an AI generator tool, and this could be part of like a mini website or something, all around generating your own future tech. So with the overall theme of kind of back to the future, what does future tech look like? I think this might be a fun, almost competition that could run. And actually, based on the kind of the sci-fi leanings of kind of Back to the Future, you could even really use this for a little bit of kind of social good and have this as almost a STEM themed competition for kids, just to start to get them to think about inventions and products and how we interact with the world around us. They might even actually be future inventors of a real DeLorean time machine. So we need to encourage and nurture this right now.
Oh, that's superb. Yeah, linking it to education and STEMs and that kind of things. That's just wonderful. I'm going to join you with the DeLorean. So I came up with a couple of things which I inspired by. So there was a PR stunt for the movie Thelma and Louise, because the car was a big part of it. So this one is a version for Back to the Future where you're going to ring a old-fashioned hotline number, so back to the 80s as well. You may have even the old-fashioned kind of ringtone, and you're going to listen to a message from Doc Brown. There's a competition, there's a treasure hunt, there's something you've got to do, a quiz or maybe a scientific problem or a maths problem to solve. and then your name goes in a hat, and you'll be taken, should you be the winner, you'll be taken to your local premiere in a DeLorean. Nice.
I would like that. That's really cool.
Yeah, I just realized we're making things up that we wish we had happened to us. As part of this segment, but getting people involved. So then I'm moving into the venue itself, the local cinemas. They are still very much involved. So obviously online sharing, art fan arts, should I say, 80s dressing up competitions, that kind of things. But definitely for all the local cinema, you've got to have what's been called a thing now, the selfie wall. So it could be a part of the wall where you have the DeLorean, or maybe you reproduced the Back to the Future poster, and people can just pose, take a selfie, hashtag it, and then share it online as well. So I think that would be a lovely thing to get people involved. But this idea of ringing to hear the Doc Brown's Christopher Lloyd's voice, telling you what to do to be taken to your local premiere in the DeLorean would be absolutely amazing. There's one thing I did struggle with, actually, with regard to ideas, was the music is very, very important. I mean, there's an entire album, but everybody remembers the two songs, Power of Love and Back in Time, isn't it, from Huey Lewis and the News. I've quickly glanced at the show notes, and you've got something, haven't you, for using the music of the soundtrack of sort?
I have. So this was one of the bits that kind of really stuck with me, even as a kid, before I kind of got the full reference. But I think the Marvin Berry reference, where hey Chuck, it's your cousin Marvin Berry. Nice use of full name as well. But actually that iconic kind of phone scene where he says, "Is this the new sound you've been looking for?" and then holds it out as 𝗦𝗽𝗲 expertly plays Johnny B. Good. And then obviously you get that sort of weird, I guess, effect of, was it from the future? Was it from the past? Was it from the future? Was it from the past? And kind of trapped in the kind of particular type of metaverse. But I think you could have loads of fun with this specific scene. I think you could have the opportunity to remix this on any level. So you get your Marvin Berry cameo who introduces your kind of clip. And then what is your particular future sound? What are you going to go for? Is it something that then you could put on your own loop? Is it from the future? Is it from the past? It's so futuristic and it's so nostalgic at the same time. Or is it a cool new sound that you're actually recording? I think that might be really fun for emerging bands and musicians, or anyone that likes a bit of a remix, or anyone that can just make an unusual noise that they want to showcase on the internet. I think would be a lot of fun. I think that's the type of one that I might definitely participate in. And while I might not be brave enough to post directly, it would definitely be getting shared directly.
Yeah, so I came up with this one inspired by actually the Lord of the Rings PR stunt, where they invited actually podcasters and film news webmasters, not the formal media. So let's imagine again that we are unhappy with the way maybe the main marketing campaign is going. So we're going to go and target the informal media. So we're going to invite the film podcasters, vloggers on the set of Back to the Future, and we're going to organize press conferences of sort, but they'll be organized in either a 1955 diner or a 1985 diner. People have got to choose, and they can't go on both. They've got to choose. So you're going to have this kind of lovely kind of the build up towards, I've been invited, but which one should I go for? 1955 diner, 1985 diner, very, very different experiences as well. And then you have the press conference, they get to meet the actors, the crew and so on, and they report back. And that would just make it fly. In 2025, with the way people are consuming content, I think to me that would be a lovely thing to do as well. And then the other thing that I thought of is then appealing to different audiences. And I think, there's definitely somewhere here to appeal to dog lovers. Very, very, active online, as you can imagine. And literally, if you remember, obviously, Doc Brown has two dogs, where Einstein, which is 1985 dog, and if memory serves, Copernicus in 1955. So it's almost like is your dog smart form of games or competition, something you can record, something you can do, and then maybe you get Copernicus or Einstein to approve of your dog kind of party trick or whatever they can do. But I think there's something in there about really tapping into all the elements of the film, and I think the dogs are definitely part of it.
Oh, I think so too. I love a good online dog challenge. The most recent one that I participated in with Luna was actually to test whether your dog was kind of smart. And you push them very slowly towards a wall, and if they put their paw out, it means that they've got the awareness of what's happening, and they're a little bit smart kind of doggy. Unfortunately, Luna ended up sort of vaguely smushed against the wall, so it didn't work. But I don't think it's damaged her self-esteem in any way. She still thinks she's the best thing ever, so it's all good. But I would love a kind of a dog trend like that. I think there's so much that we could absolutely kind of do around Back to the Future for engaging audiences. But I think certainly giving back and rewarding that community. And I know that for a Back to the Future fan, traditionally Back to the Future Day is the day that Marty McFly inputs into the DeLorean in the second film. But I think not enough credit is given for the original date that Doc Brown kind of inputs in the first film, which is the 5th of November. Now, there are other 5th of November things, but I think this could become a kind of big trend in terms of how we celebrate, have almost like a Comic-Con style webinar or online conference would be really cool, with kind of look backs at the archives and kind of sharing little unseen things. And I think there's lots that you could do to make it into a kind of really accessible digital celebration of the film. And maybe if they haven't got that in the works for the 40th anniversary, we could like DM them after this, and maybe we could make it happen for the 50th anniversary, Pascal.
Absolutely, and on the subject of data, thinking that there's something in there. So again, this is 2025, movies takes place in 55, 85, but I think there's something in there about asking people literally, where were you in 55 or 85, Were you born actually on those very dates? And then maybe you can win something or be a VIP in some of the local screening and so on. There's definitely something in there. So the final one that I came up with, again, to really bring people together in this, what I think to be one of the most joyous movies ever made in the 80s, is some kind of lip sync trends or lip sync battle, which you see a lot on TikTok and YouTube shorts as well there. So you could either choose interacting with Doc Brown or Marty McFly or even Biff Tannen, and then pick the most famous lines. Some of them were in the trailer we watched a moment ago, but, Great Scott, or 1.21 gigawatts, all that kind of things. Or I'm from the future, Doc, that kind of things. But, or you could be the one reacting to Biff Tannen when he says, are you chicken? All those kind of things. Or why don't you make like a tree and get out of here? Or all those lines that people repeat to themselves. But I think with online, you can bring elements of the movie and create some very interesting kind of split screen where you are allegedly interacting with Doc Brown, but your kind of lips moving to the sync of the words being said. I think there's a lot of things that could be done there, which would be just absolutely fascinating.
No, absolutely. I think there is so much, and I feel like we could go on. We could just keep generating these ideas. The sad thing is we can't make them all happen. That's the real tragedy.
Well, all I will say, I'm going to close and wrap up this segment. This was one of the most fun we've done in quite some time now. I'm going to address Robert Zemeckis. I'm going to address Bob Gale, Steven Spielberg, people at Universal Studios. I don't know. I mean, you go back, have a listen, happy to send you a transcript, but I think there's something in there that if we've missed a boat for the 40th, maybe the 45th, maybe the 50th, let us know. You know where we are, and we'd be delighted to contribute to the planning and thinking of a social media campaign for Back to the Future. That was immense fun, wasn't it, Natalie?
It really was. It really was.
So go on. If you're a big fan, you must be a big fan of Back to the Future. Let us know, what would you do to get this social media campaign working so that, we supplement what would be seen to be a more generic form of marketing from the studios. That's the way it should be. People should take control of their own marketing and do something a bit more kind of practical and a bit more engaging. Everyone, that is the end of the Social Media Newsroom episode. Thank you so much, Natalie, for all the research, for all your wonderful advice and contribution. Thank you to you for listening and watching this episode as well. And to the next one, please send us your comments, send us your questions, and go out there and make sure your social media is done right. I was Pascal Fintoni, and she was Natalie Emmene. Bye for now.